welcome to the Chirp YouTube channel. Today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the social stages of play. I did a previous video about solitary play and I'll put a link to that right over here. But today I'm going to talk about social play and the different stages of social play. Now the whole idea of play developing like any other skill was studied for the first time in 1932 by a woman named Mildred Parton. She classified 6 different kinds of play. Studies since then have identified additional stages, or they've relabeled stages, but I'm going to use the names that make the most sense to me and the families that I've worked with. I want this to be simple so that you can look at how your child is interacting and help your child move to the next stage. So just a quick recap, solitary play is usually a bit easier for our kids, especially our kids with developmental disabilities, especially things that involve a sensory component and a language component, possibly a cognitive component as well. Solitary play is a lot easier for them. So I'm going to quick go through the stages of solitary play, and then we will move on to the focus of this video, which is going to be social play. So the first stage of solitary play is unengaged. And this is where a child doesn't appear to really have an interest in much of anything. The child is just kind of not paying attention, or just kind of watching the world go by and not latching on to any one particular thing that's really interesting to him. Child may be standing in one spot, maybe performing random movements, but isn't really sucked into the action or to interacting with people. And unengaged children need a different sort of support to move to the next step. And I'm going to put a link right here that will talk to you a little bit about how to help your child engage with the world around him. The following 3 stages I discussed in that video that I put a link to right there. And the first one of them is stage 2 of solitary play is sensory play. So this is playing with something that's a cause and effect toy, so pushing a button and lights come on, or pushing a button and noise comes on. Light up toys, noisy toys, pianos, instruments, or maybe just looking at a car and spinning the wheels really closely. This all would be considered to be sensory play. And then there's closed-ended play, which is the next step, step number 3 of solitary play. There's only one way to do it, one proper sequence of events that takes place. So this might be bowling, it might be playing catch, it might be playing with a train set. You put the pieces together and then you drive the train around. That's pretty much all you can do. So those are the things that count as closed-ended play. And then the fourth stage in solitary play is open-ended play. This is where there's any number of creative ways that you could play that. This is why it becomes difficult for our students to do open-ended play, is because there are so many possibilities that they find it difficult to narrow it down. Especially those with a sensory and social element, they just cannot as easily look at an open field and narrow down their focus to one way to do this today, but tomorrow they could do it a different way. And so again, I have a video where I talk about some ways to support kids as they are moving towards open-ended play, and so I recommend that you watch it. And by the way, if you happen to click on any of these links, this video will pause and you will be taken to the other video, and when you're finished with that one, you can come back and finish this one. Or you can not click on them now and come back and click on them later and watch them later. It's all up to you. Choose your own adventure. So moving on to social play, the first stage, again, I'm going to call unengaged. This type of play is where a child is playing near a group of children or another child, but the child is not interested in them, the child is not observing them in any way, is not doing what they're doing. I've often had families tell me that yes, their child is playing with peers. And then when I observe, what I see is the child is doing something and all the peers are doing something else. Not very close by, not in the same vicinity. They're not interacting at all. They're not even sharing the activity. That looks like play to a lot of families, but it actually isn't the kind of play that we're going for. The child is proximately located, so nearby, but play includes a lot more than just location. The only reason I'm including this category in the social play section, because obviously the kid is playing by himself and those other kids are over there, so it's not really social. But the reason I'm including it in this video anyway is because it's where many of our students, especially those with autism, start when it comes to play, and we need to talk about how to move them towards the next step. It's important for us to discuss how to get to the next stage, and we have to start where we are in order to do that. Many of our children with social deficits or sensory difficulties have difficulty even with unengaged play when peers are nearby. Sometimes this is due to sensory overstimulation, like it's too loud. Sometimes it's because the language barrier is too high. They're afraid that a kid might come over and take their favorite thing and they might not know how to get it back. Children don't know automatically how to be flexible, and I made a video about that because it's very important. So increasing flexibility video will be right there if you click on it. And they don't know how to communicate their wants and needs very successfully, especially to their peers. And I have another video about developing early communication skills right there, so take a peek at that too. So many resources. And communicating with same age peers is especially difficult because adults and kids who are a little bit older are a little more flexible, a little more willing and able to fill in the gaps where the child with the deficit is not able to communicate effectively. So the child may want something and reach for it, and a peer would pay no attention to that. An older child or an adult might see the grasping hand and go, that child wants something, I bet it's this truck, and sort of fill in the gap there. And so children with language and cognitive delays often lean towards preferring adults and older peers to interact with rather than kids their own age. If a child can't even handle unengaged play near peers, check out the video on distress tolerance, which the link will be right here, because a lot of times the child doesn't know how to handle the internal distress that comes with the chaos that other children in play bring into his world. And so we need to help the child learn some self-regulation skills, and that's what that video will help you to do. The idea is to slowly inch towards whatever it is that is upsetting and disturbing, while at the same time helping the child to remain calm and regulated. So you might sneakily move the child's chair closer to his peers at art time. Or you might set up the child's favorite activity a foot closer to where the other kids are playing cars or whatever the case is. And then before you know it, the child is very, very close to peers. They're still not playing the same toys, they're still not actually interacting, but they're very close in proximity, and that is the first step. If the child notices and reacts in a negative way, this is where you say, our friends are a little closer, but that's okay. We use a very calming voice. We don't act upset. Everything is fine. They're just a little closer. We repeat whatever mantra, whatever calming mantra we want to use regularly throughout this process. Whenever the kid starts to get a little upset, I might say, they're a little close, but that's okay. And I just keep my calm voice, and we keep doing whatever it is that the child is really having fun doing. It's just that those other kids are kind of close. If noise is the problem, then you can provide some of those little construction headphones. I'll put a link down below that are really helpful to kids who have difficulty managing overwhelming noises. If the child is upset because you believe the child is upset because he doesn't know how to protect his favorite stuff, if he's afraid someone else is going to come over and take his Thomas the Tank Engine, then we need to teach him how to, at an age-appropriate level, protect that item. So we need to teach a script like, that's mine, if he's 2 or 3, or give that back, or whatever. Look at the other kids, the typical kids, and see what phrases are they saying to each other to protect their stuff. It doesn't have to be polite. We want it to be age-appropriate. And then teach that to whatever child you're working with. And encourage him that you can protect your stuff, and here's how you do it. You say, that's mine, and then the kids will back off and you get to keep it. So stage number 2 of social play is observational. This is where the child watches other children play but doesn't take part in what they're doing. During this stage, the child might talk about the play that he sees happening, or he might comment on what he might do if he were playing with those kids. And those are good places for us to start. One way to help kids move from unengaged social play to observational play with peers is by first calling attention to the fun that the peers are having. So you might say something like, look, Landon is playing with Gordon. I love Gordon because he's green, and green is my favorite color. Actually, blue is my favorite color, but you know, I'm just being exciting. So at this stage, we want the child to look at the other kids, see that they're having fun, and be interested in observing what they're doing. So we just frequently call attention to what the other kids are doing, make it sound really great. Then we get to stage number 3, which I'm calling parallel play. And if you think about it, it makes sense, because here's 2 parallel lines. They don't get closer together at one end or the other. They don't get closer together in the middle. They stay separate, but they're close to each other and they're going in the same direction. So parallel play is when the child plays separately from other children, but close to them and using the same set of toys or the same kind of toys. So this might be everyone's painting at a table together and they're all painting with the same paint, the same paper, the same style of painting. So everybody's doing watercolors. Or maybe everyone is building with blocks all together on the rug. Or maybe everyone is driving a car. Your kid might not be driving a car, crashing it into other kids' cars, but your kid is also driving a car. In this stage, the child isn't necessarily doing the same sort of play activities as peers. So like I just mentioned with the cars, the other kids might be crashing them into each other or having races, and maybe your kid is just driving the car in a little circle. But right now, this counts as parallel play as long as your child is sort of referencing what the other kids are doing. And he's paying attention, but not necessarily doing exactly what they're doing. This type of play is seen as a transitory stage from a socially immature, solitary, and onlooker type of play to a more socially mature, associative, and cooperative sort of play. So cooperation is the kind of play that we want. A pretend play that's cooperative with other kids is the pinnacle of amazing play that we want our kids to get to. And that's going to be the last stage that I talk about in this video because it's the best. Parallel play is another type of play that looks a lot like social play, especially to the uninitiated. if you look from afar, all the kids are playing pretty much the same thing, and they're using similar words, and they share the same play universe. So if everybody's playing Thomas, they all have the same characters, the same tracks, they all have Sir Topham Hatt, and maybe they even are talking with funny little accents or something like that. But it doesn't mean there's interaction going on. A great way to encourage children to move from observational play to parallel play is to offer the child toys that are the same as what his peers are playing. It makes so much sense. So for example, if the kids are playing cars and your kid is playing a cause and effect toy where you push a button and the light comes on, offer your kid some cars and practice driving them on the rug or on a pretend little road that we draw, practice crashing them into each other. Just give your kids some good examples of what the other kids are doing and practice those things taking place. If the target child, so your child, only wants to play trains and the group is playing house, try letting him put Thomas the Tank Engine to bed and cover him up with a blanket, or feed him a little bottle. So teach the skills the child will need in order to play whatever it is that the other kids are playing. So once again, you are the bridge. You're teaching, you're looking at what the other kids are doing when they're doing their typical play. Then you're going to teach some transitional skills to your child who needs a bridge, and you're being the bridge. So go you. And if your child is able to use Thomas the Tank Engine to play house with, then he has a little transition toy that he can take to that activity with him that makes it feel like he's still playing Thomas, even though he's playing in a new sort of universe. And that is a good help for him as he learns new skills and does things that maybe aren't his preferred activity, but which long term are much better. The fourth stage of social play I'm going to call associative play. This is when the child is interested in the children playing and he's interested in what the children are doing, but he's not yet interested in actually interacting with the other children. The child is using similar toys, similar words, and similar actions. So in this case, if the other kids are driving cars and they're crashing them into each other, the target child is also driving cars and crashing them into each other. And if those kids are saying boom, crash, bang, this child is also saying boom, crash, bang. But he's not yet bridged the gap between boom, crash, bang just with his own cars or with you and with all of the other students. That's still a little bit past his reach independently. If the group is playing school, the child we're watching is also using school-type toys and school-type words and phrases, but our target child is not yet interacting with the other kids. Our child can be encouraged to move from parallel play to associative play by pointing out what the other children are doing with the toys and encouraging the target child to imitate those actions. So when the child is comfortable enough to play with the same toys the other kids are playing with, then we can say, look, Tommy is crashing his cars into the wall. That's crazy. Let's try it. And we crash our cars into the wall. Or, look, the kids are playing school and Bonnie is the teacher. Should I be the teacher or do you want to be the teacher? And of course, encourage your child to take on as many different roles as possible while practicing the skills that he will need to play with the other kids, because the turn taking of roles is really important when kids are playing. So stage number 5 of social play is cooperative or joint play. I've always called this joint play, but cooperative makes a little more sense probably. This is where the interaction really starts to take place between the kids. So in the above example of crashing cars together, the child crosses over to cooperative or joint play when he crashes his car into a peer's car instead of to yours. And maybe he says crash or boom or bang or ha, I got you, or whatever it is the other kids are saying, he does that too. The best way to get a child to move from associative play to joint or cooperative play is by encouraging the child to do whatever play action he has been doing with you to another child instead. Like we just talked about, we might say, hey, we just crashed cars into the wall. Go crash your car into Tommy's car. Let's see what he does. And you need to still be there to coach, because your child is going to run into situations that he doesn't know how to handle, and it's still probably a little overwhelming to him at each step, even though we've probably gone slowly because we want to keep that distress level low. Every little stage is a little bit threatening, and so we need to be there to help the child regulate himself and keep calm and stable and not afraid, because nobody learns when we're afraid, and we don't have fun when we're distressed. Stage number 6, we have reached the acme of play. This is pretend social play. This is where kids play act as if they are something else. And socially, this is really challenging because there are a lot of skills that go into social pretend play with other people. Obviously, it's social, so there's other people. If he's just pretend playing by himself, it's no big deal. He can pretend to be a deep sea diver or an astronaut. But if he's supposed to pretend play house with other kids, then there has to be negotiation. There have to be good use of language, because you have to use new words. If you're playing house, it's very different from playing Thomas. The words are different. The phrasing is different. Mom and dad say different things to the baby than Thomas says to Sir Topham Hatt. There's a whole different lexicon that needs to be used. Also, a lot of our kids have difficulty putting themselves in someone else's shoes, so to speak, thinking from someone else's point of view. And so playing social pretend play, your child has to think, okay, I am the doctor and a sick person comes in, but I'm the doctor. I'm used to going into the doctor as a patient because I am 5 years old or whatever, so I'm not a doctor yet, but I usually go in as a patient. So how do I pretend to be the doctor? How does the doctor feel? What is the doctor thinking? And he's got to go through all these things in his head. So those are some things to think about while you are lurking along the sidelines, maybe coaching every once in a while. Think through how to provide a few scripts here and there for your child when he maybe gets a little bit lost. But these skills, the negotiating, the language, the thinking from someone else's perspective, these things are all the things that we want our children to learn. These are the reasons why pretend play is so beneficial for our kids. And the best way to move your kids towards pretend play, social pretend play, is by asking your child, by looking at what the kids are doing and saying, hey, which person do you want to be? Do you want to be the sick person? Do you want to have a broken leg? Or do you want to be the doctor? And so you get to help your child pick apart, communicate it to the group, and then help your child come up with scripts that are appropriate for that scenario. So you might say, okay, you chose to be the person with the broken leg. How are you feeling right now? Does anything hurt? How are your insides? Do your emotions feel sad or scared? Okay, what are we going to tell the doctor? And so you can kind of walk through how the process goes and make sure to keep pointing your child's attention back to the other kids and saying, look what they're doing. That child has a sore throat. Look what she's doing. She's holding her throat. I wonder if you should hold your leg because your leg is broken. And those are some good ideas for helping your child move into pretend play with peers. What happens in each of these stages is usually different for children with developmental diagnoses than for typical children. Typical children usually move very smoothly through these stages at a very young age. I'm always shocked when I play with typical kids because I think they're all geniuses. They just are born knowing how to play. It's amazing. And then I realized that the kids that I work with, kids with cognitive delay or social delays or language delays or sensory difficulties, usually all of the above, play is an issue where all of those problems come to the forefront, and they all cause delays in the area of play. And it's not something that comes natural to most of our kids. Children with diagnoses typically take longer to move from one stage to the next, and they typically get stuck in the earlier stages because those are the ones that are the easiest for them and the least threatening. And typical children usually move through all these stages with no support whatsoever. They just do it completely independently. But children with developmental diagnoses usually need the help of a play partner, someone that's doing the strategies that I've mentioned in this video to move from one stage to the next and then to make progress, hopefully through all the stages. So that's kind of what this video is giving you a little bit of an introduction into what it means to help your child learn play skills and very specifically and purposefully help your child move from one stage to the next in play. I also want to recommend finding a play group in your area. Play groups can be very, very helpful, and not every area has these, but if you do in your area, please take advantage of them. Usually they're led by a speech-language pathologist, and they involve more than one child. Most of the children all have similar diagnoses, and the idea is that they get together and then they work on those play skills in a therapeutic way, sort of like what I'm talking about here, except for it's more structured and purposeful than just seeing where the kids are and moving them towards it. It's just a little bit, you know, it's professionals doing it, so they can see things sometimes that an untrained eye can't see, and those are the things that they work on, while at the same time teaching new language and helping kids get their sensory needs met. So it can be a very great atmosphere for kids to learn some of these skills. There is no substitute, however, for you getting on the floor, playing with your kid, and helping your kid to move towards pretend social play, which is what we are after. I put lots of links down below in the drop-down box, so please don't hesitate to go down there and check those out. And of course, go back and watch this video again and click on any of the links that I put over here that you can learn a little bit more from, because really, talking about play and talking about language development and early childhood, all of the topics fit together like a puzzle. So it's very difficult sometimes to pull out just one piece and talk about that for a video. So there's a lot of background and a lot of corroborating data that I think you need in order to fill in the holes that I cannot fill in just one little video. So I hope that you have a wonderful day and that you go and have some fun playing with your child. Have a great day. Bye.